This is the Anastasia Ryzhkova podcast. Lamar Neal is a brilliant and unconventional writer. If you would like to read a unique and thought-provoking story, check out his book, Miscellaneous Eden, that you can find on Kindle. Trust me, you will not be bored. In his own words, Lamar's second love is poetry, and it's a stunning romance that you can witness on his Instagram page, or in his recent poetry book, Charm Bracelet. I trust that you will enjoy this conversation. Hi there, Lamar. How are you?
Hey, how are you? Doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Except for this electricity
Yeah.
nonsense. Everything else is great.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad everything else is okay, because
Thank
I
you.
wouldn't have been able to fix that. I would have just been sitting in the dark.
Right? Well, thank God it's 7 a.m. in the morning, so it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
dark per
Yeah.
se, but it's really difficult without my laptop. That's my whole life.
True,
Mm,
right? We're in
right?
that age where technology rules everything, so
We are actually, yeah. Hmm. That's an interesting
yeah.
thing to think about. As soon as your technology goes down, what are you gonna do? What am I gonna do now? I guess I have a pen and
Eh,
paper, and I can write things down with my pen.
that's cool, but like if I need to call someone, I couldn't remember anybody's numbers because they're all in my phone.
Right? If you need to call somebody who can fix the electricity issues, who
Right?
are you gonna call?
So yeah, it's a scary thought. No technology.
Yeah, well, I think we need to maybe move away from it a little bit. But anyway,
Yeah,
it is what it is. What time is it now
true.
where you are?
It is 10, like 17 p.m.
Oh, okay. Are you a night
Yeah.
owl?
Yes. Oh, I love being awake, like at night,
Yeah.
because it's like no one else is up. I can just be by myself.
That's
So, like
true.
when I was younger and I lived with my mom, I would just stay up. Like during the summers when I had school off, I would just stay up all night, sleep in the mornings, had the whole house to myself.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was young too, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
yeah.
quiet.
Sometimes it's hard for me to go to sleep at night because I just get filled with energy. So I'm a night owl, most definitely.
Oh, there you go. Maybe it was your energy that shut down my electricity. Too much
Don't put that on
energy.
me. No, I'm joking.
Just blame you.
That's funny. That's funny.
Uh, you know what? It is funny. But yeah, your book. I was gonna say, as soon as I don't know why, but I only realized yesterday that you actually have two books published, right?
I, yes, I have two. Yeah.
Your
One is
poetry.
a novel,
Mm-hmm.
and one is a poetry book.
Yeah, your novel is amazing. Have you ever considered making it into an? Yeah, I looked at some of it. I didn't read the whole thing yet, but I think I will. I couldn't stop. It's so bizarre.
I'm glad. I'm
Yeah,
glad. That's what I was going with.
yeah.
I was going with bizarre, and it's funny because not a lot of people took to that too well.
Really? Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I had several individuals contact me as like I don't know what this is. So I don't and I was
So
like it
you.
gets normal after the first chapter.
Oh, does it?
It brings it back into to reality a lot more. It's still
Mhm.
really weird, I like to think, but it's not as weird as the very first chapter.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you said something interesting in the beginning. You said
Uh,
that it's not really a book about,
yeah.
how did you say it? Deep thinking?
Um It's to me, it's a collection of short stories featuring the same characters that just tell a overarching story that's very subtle. It's very subtle, and it's not too complex. It's just really a coming of age story
Mm,
about mainly this kid Adam and
hmm.
his three friends. So I like to think of it as a short stories because you'll start reading some of it, and it's I guess you can look at it like journal entries.
Yeah.
So someone who's telling their story and they're just kind of skipping through pages and filling it in and then going back and filling in the other pages. So I wanted it to be like a person remembering their childhood and not all the time. Like we don't remember our childhood like in chronological order. Like we jump
Yeah.
here or five, maybe jump to 10, maybe jump back to six. So I kind of
Hmm.
wanted to do it like that rather than telling the story from point A to point Z. So like I said, it throws a lot of people off because in the beginning they're talking about something, and then at the end they're talking about something. You're like, wait, but this happened before this. So, but like I said, I really wanted to create like a dream, like because the
Yeah.
idea came to me like a dream, in a dream actually. It
In
came
a
to me in
dream.
a dream.
Wow, let's talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. Were you writing your dreams down, or how did that occur?
Um, so I dream a lot. I don't know if it ever happened to you too, where you'll dream, you wake
Yeah,
up and you
I
can
dream a
remember
lot.
it, but if someone asks you what the dream was about, you'll be like, wait, huh? Like I
It
couldn't
was
tell
so
it. Like
weird, yeah.
yeah, so I remember it, but I couldn't put it on paper a lot of the times. So with this one, I remember I woke up in the morning and was like, okay, I gotta write this one down because I actually remember. And it was a lot more bizarre in my dreams than it actually was than when I wrote it.
Well, there you go.
Uh,
Say that to those
yeah,
people who couldn't follow it.
yeah, yeah.
Try
It
being in
was
my
it.
head. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of just I created the novel to try to capture like the imagination of a kid.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the first chapter, it's really a lot of stuff going on. Like there's Ghost that speaks like in this broken fake Shakespearean accent.
Yeah,
Like
that was
there are
awesome.
yeah, there's dragons over, you know, there's rag dolls. He's talking about how his mom is singing like on ice cubes in a river made of like iced tea and things like that. And it's just like I said, I just really wanted it to be weird. I wanted to be out there, at least in that first chapter, because it is telling a story. And some people did get what was happening, and I don't know if you want me to tell you what was happening in the first chapter or not. But I normally tell people, it's like, did you read it? Did you get it? And then if they say no, I was like, do you want me to explain it? Because
Hmm.
it's so I wanted to have a unreliable narrator.
Hmm.
I wanted a narrator to where people are like, okay, is this really happening, or is this person telling this story just how they're seeing it with their emotions running wild or whatnot? So I really didn't want. I wanted people to question
Yeah.
some of the things the person was saying.
So to make people think a little bit when they read. Yeah.
Like what's exactly happening?
Hmm.
And I didn't want to just tell people exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
Like you'll figure out what's happening like later on in the story because they'll reference it. But at first I was like, let's try to figure this out, or just enjoy the ride, just enjoy the bizarre.
Yeah, well, it was interesting, especially talking about the first chapter when they're sitting in the cop car all of a sudden. It's like, where did they get the cop car? Like,
Yeah,
who are they? Yeah, what's
exactly.
happening? Yeah.
Yeah, what happened? So it's really, like I said, it's just really these kids telling the story, and it's just the first chapter is just fun loving, just really
Yeah.
just them having fun. Because when you were a kid, like you went outside, like we were playing like cops and robbers, or we pretended to be like pop stars, or we pretended to do different things like that. So it's kind of the kids just doing that, but like I said, it's just you're not told what's happening. You kind of just get off in the middle of it.
The reason why I loved it, and I think the first thing that came to mind when I started reading it was, did he ever consider making an animated movie out of this? It was like reading Rick and Morty on paper, sort of, but very different.
Actually, yes. So
Mm.
so the first thing I ever wrote was I wanted to write an anime series, but I was like, I can't animate. I don't know anybody who can animate it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna just write it as a novel, which isn't the one we're talking about.
Yeah.
But the first novel I ever wrote was based on it was written like a series. Like I even had it like not chapter one, like episode one, episode two, episode three, and I kind of
Oh.
paste it like that, and I kind of still do that in my stories, just like as internal
Yeah.
process. Because it helps me get to point A to point Z without wasting time and putting like filler and things like that. So I go into a lot of things kind of in the approach of if this was a TV show, like how would episode one still tell an isolated story, but then
Hmm.
continue the overall story.
That's interesting. You've got a very interesting mind. That's really cool. Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm trying to think of
So
another adjective, but cool. Yeah.
so so you just read some of it. Like how did you get far, or you just kind of just skimming through it? Just curious, like the book.
Well, I found your book yesterday, and
Oh,
I've only read one chapter because I only
okay,
found it yesterday.
got
I
it.
don't know why it took me so long to get to realize that you were actually those things on your Instagram. It's actually your book. I'm like, oh, right. He
Oh
wrote
yeah,
another book. That's a story. That's a novel. Because I
yeah,
was going to ask you if you're also a storyteller. Because
yes.
judging from your poems, looking at your poems, um, it's very storyteller-like. There's something else behind them.
Yeah, so I've been writing almost my entire life or creating stories my entire life. So if you can picture this, maybe me like 10 years old
Yeah.
and I'm in my room and I'm doing what all kids do. I'm playing with my toys, but I always looked at it like a TV show, kind of going back to that idea.
Hmm.
So I had certain music as the intro. I had commercial breaks. I had music playing during certain scenes.
Amazing. Look at you
I had
go.
it all down to the T, and like each of my toys was a different show and they couldn't mix. No.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
they were their own isolated shows and they would stay in the toy box until this it was time for that show to come on. And like literally when I was about 10 or 11, like I had maybe three shows and to a point where I was recording them on a camcorder. I don't know why my mom bought an 11-year-old a camcorder, but she did. And I was just recording it, which is funny because I found some of the recordings when I moved last year and I was embarrassed. I was totally embarrassed.
Oh, please. I'm sure there's some gold in there. Sure you can turn
No,
it into something.
there's no goat. So yeah, I'm definitely a storyteller. I like to think that my first love is writing novels and my
Hmm.
second love is poetry.
Wow. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful way to
So,
describe it.
but I do notice like because I like to look at a lot of other writers like on Instagram or whatnot,
Hmm.
and I always get subconscious and insecure because it's like my poetry don't read like that. My poetry is just long winded at times, or
Yeah.
is
Well, it's different. It's
or
definitely
it's
different.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's why it caught
So,
my
but
eye. Yeah. I really like mm, different ways of using words because there is no one way of writing
no,
poetry.
absolutely not. And like before, when I was writing poetry, like when I was like 17 or 18, um, I was trying to do it all like the ways you're taught
Hmm.
in schools. I was trying to write like sonnets or whatever. I was trying to try to use hyperbole and all of this stuff, all the
Yeah.
techniques I learned. Then I realized I was like, that's hindering me.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
I was like, I'm trying to find this like I'm trying to create like stuff this into a certain amount of lines. I'm trying to do all of that. And then I really just was around like 20 something. I was like, you know what? Just let it go. Just
Yeah.
free verse. Just tell my story. What am I trying to convey in this poem? And then I just kind
Mm.
of go off. A lot of them are, I actually consider a lot of my poems like rants. Like I'm just ranting or venting.
And it comes
That's,
out beautifully. Well, I was learning about this poet from 1920s, André Breton, and I think he was French. And
uh,
they were doing this with, he's a group of poets, he's friends of poets. They were doing automatic writing. So they just shut down their minds completely and just wrote things down. And his poems, look them up, his poems are so bizarre. You can't even
really?
you can't even quite understand where he's going with this. And I think in the beginning, there's a woman who's trying to explain what his poems are about. I'm like, I don't know.
He's like, I
uh,
didn't get that at all.
I don't know. I got something completely different. So I don't know. I guess it depends on your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's a beautiful thing about art. No one
definitely.
sees it the same way.
Definitely. You're definitely an artist. So when did you start? You say you started imagining at 10 and writing novels at 10. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, like I said, the little stories. I never put anything to paper until maybe 14.
Yeah.
And I started writing poetry. And back then, I would write the poem on a piece of paper, and then it was my way of letting it go. So I would like throw it away or rip it apart,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it was like some type of like negative feeling, whether it's like a sadness or an anger or frustration. I was like, I don't want to feel this. So symbolically, I let it go.
Huh.
And then 14 as well is when I jumped into trying to write stories as well.
Yeah.
And I remember the story. I started writing a story about a kid. He was maybe he was a senior in high school, I do believe, and he had to take care of his sister because his mom was like on drugs or alcoholic or whatnot. So he had to like sacrifice his childhood to raise his sister because all he's known was being like that parent slash big brother. And then the story kind of deals with him becoming his own individual because maybe halfway through the book, which was intended because I never got this far, but halfway through the book, his mom would start sobering up.
Right.
And she got her life clean, and he would struggle because he's like, and it was kind of like it was going to cause like a lot of family issues because he's still treating his mom like she's just like this strung out addict, and it was like all this family dynamics going on with like his friends coming in, his uncles and aunts coming in. So I started writing at 14, stopped halfway through because it's like, oh, this is terrible. And then I just kind of stuck with poetry until about 21, and then I started writing novels again, novels and short stories.
Well, that first novel you just described sounds quite interesting.
I always told myself I would go back to it, but the issue with that is, if you do read the very, very first chapter in my novel, I took the first chapter from the first book I started writing. Like I remember I found it and I saw some of the stuff and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I went back and obviously updated it and fixed a lot of the writing because, but I borrowed a lot of that for the first chapter. And then even some of the situations that happens in the novel later on, it was kind of borrowed from the first novel I started writing.
It sounds like the idea is very similar, especially when you're describing the mother, the creator of the character in your novel.
Oh, yeah.
And she's all dancing and happy, and I'm like, that sounds like a kid, the way that kid would imagine an alcoholic or
that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So the reason I told myself I couldn't go back to it or I wouldn't go back to it is like I got to start all the way from scratch, which may not necessarily be a bad thing, but it might be one of those where it's like maybe when like I'm retired and I go back and it's like, hey, I'm gonna go back to the very first thing I wrote.
It's funny that you say that. I literally just thought of saying that to you. Yeah, maybe you'll write it again at the end of your life,
Yeah, that's actually was my plan. It's for when I was in school, like in high school, I had to write I forgot the exact project, but pretty much I had to write a biography about myself. And not biography. What is it when someone passes away? And then it's like the little thing they write about their life. I forgot. Eulogy? Is it eulogy?
No.
No, it's not eulogy. I don't know what it is, but it's whatever that is.
Oh, yeah, I think it's eulogy. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So I had to write one of those for myself. Yeah, if it's wrong, sorry, everyone.
No, that's okay. Was that an assignment in school?
Yeah, it was creepy.
That's creepy.
So you had to write your own eulogy. And so I remember writing it and it was like in your perfect life. So you're telling your perfect life. So if someone said they want to be a musician, then you talk about that. And so I did that. And then in it, I actually said like in like the last thing I wrote was the first thing I started when I was 14. I finished it. And then I was like, maybe a year later, I passed away. That's creepy, writing when you pass away. But but I actually wrote that down saying that was going to be the thing I'm going to do. And I'll probably just stick to it.
Interesting. Well, as morbid as it is, it sounds like it's
an
exercise. Yeah, a little. I don't know. You're supposed. Where did you go to
school? California. Southern California. I had weird teachers growing up. I had very weird teachers. Oh, yeah.
Tell us more. I had weird teachers. I went to international school, though. Sorry, I know some of my teachers are still listening, but...
Don't offend nobody. No one's listening to me. But I had this one teacher.
My teachers know they're weird.
I had this one teacher. He was my geometry teacher, and he was married to a woman from the Philippines. Yeah. And he was not shy to admit that she was a male or bride. And like the reason I never learned geometry because he never taught us anything because he would sit the entire class and talked about him and his wife. Yeah, so I've had teachers like that.
That's so interesting. Well, I guess that's why you were a writer, because your English was probably better. Did you enjoy
Yes.
English class at school?
I did.
Hmm.
So my mentor, I really do consider her my mentor, Miss Steenhausen.
Yeah.
She was my English professor from, I think it might have been 10th to and 11th grade. I don't know if the years are the same for you, but
I went to American school system, so we can I
okay.
understand your language.
Uh, well, normally when I tell people, it's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh. So I
Yeah,
do believe
yeah.
I think she was my English professor for 3 years, actually. So
Hmm.
my ninth grade to 11th. And
Hmm.
then I had another teacher, but Miss Steenhausen, she was like she was really a mentor to me. And she helped me out with my poetry. She helped me out with my writing. And I just remember I loved that class because she just made things so fun.
Yeah.
She really did. Like when we were reading Shakespeare, we had to make a play. Like, so it was Macbeth, and we had to make a play kind of centered around the theme of Macbeth, but it couldn't be Macbeth. Like, we couldn't be like the characters. I couldn't remember what we did, but I do remember that. And then, so we did a lot of like interacting. So it wasn't your standard,
Yeah.
like, all right, we'll sit there, be quiet, and listen to me talk. Like, we did a lot of, getting up
Interesting.
and kind of participating with English class. I really did.
That's cool. It's crazy that you say that. We did a Macbeth as well, but we filmed it into a movie and then we gave it to one of our students to
Oh.
edit it, and we've never seen it
Uh,
again. We haven't.
it
I'm
just
actually
took
still
it as
in
a little.
contact with that guy, so I might message him and say, "Hey, remember that Macbeth movie?"
We did another one on Great Gatsby.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So with that one, it wasn't like a play, but our test,
Mhm.
like our exam in this class was they threw a party. So everyone brought food and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and we were all assigned a character,
Mhm.
and we had to portray that character. So we had to act. We had to portray that character at the party.
Yeah.
So I forgot who I was. I don't know who I was. I was some jazz musician. I know
Not
that. So
Gatsby.
no, so actually we weren't characters in the book. We were just
Ah.
characters that around the time that the book was based in, like the era.
So
So
you
was it
guys,
20s? It
right. So you
was.
guys were having the Great Gatsby parties before the hipsters got to it.
Yeah, right. We originated that.
Yeah.
Then it got too.
And then it just
Yeah.
moved on from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like our instructor would come up to us and hold a conversation.
Yeah.
And it would be all basic info. Like we didn't have to know that person's life from birth to death, but it was just simple things they would ask us, and they would know if we did our research on that character if we couldn't answer a single question. Like if I
Mhm.
was a jazz musician, they asked me how was the music, and I was like, I don't perform music. What are you talking about? Then they obviously had no idea who I was, and then that would affect the grade. So English was a very fun class when I was growing up, at
That
least in high
sound
school.
that sounds like it. What was your favorite novel when you were in high school?
Um, oh, mm, what was my favorite book? My memory is just failing me today. Um,
That's fine.
Lord of Flies, the Lord of
The Lord of Flies.
because I'm a very yeah, the Lord of the Flies. Yes, have you heard of the book?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah, I love that book because I also believe deep down humans are naturally wicked. They
Hmm.
just there's things that control us. So like you strip away society, you strip away the rules from these kids who were innocent. Well,
Hmm.
no, you didn't see them before that point, but you would assume they were a lot more innocent than what they were on that island, and then they just become more vicious as
Yeah,
the book goes on. So I loved that book growing up, like in high school.
that makes a lot of
Um,
sense. Yeah.
and then another one I was in love with is I actually wasn't in high school. When I got older, I really fell in love with Hemingway.
Yeah.
The Bell Tolls. I remember I read that book, and the first time I read it, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. Because there was some sin I was like, huh? I couldn't follow him at times. I don't know why. And then when I reread it when I was a little bit older, I was like, I really fell in love with that book. but Lord of the Flies and Of Mice and Men. I didn't do much reading when I was a teenager unless I was required to in school. So all the books I loved growing up was books I had to read in school. But Of Mice and Men was I really enjoyed that book.
Right. Is that by Hemingway? I don't know.
No,
I
that's
don't
I
know.
don't know who wrote
Sorry.
the
I
book.
sound so ignorant now. Yeah.
I honestly could not remember who wrote that book. But Of Mice and Men.
Never heard of it
It's
before. Mm.
and then I think that's it. What about you?
Ooh. Well, actually, funny that Hemingway is somebody I really did not enjoy in high school, but I'm thinking of reading it now because I think it was his masculine way of presenting a story, and I wasn't really in connection with that
Okay.
part of myself, so it really didn't resonate with me. But I loved The Catcher in the Rye in high school.
Okay. Okay.
That was a
Yeah.
really cool adventure story and very deep on many levels.
Yeah. It's funny story with that book.
Yeah.
Um, I can never remember what that book is about, but there's the one scene I always remember. And people always like, "What is wrong with you, Lamar? Why is that the scene? Is this the chapter when he went and was talking to the prostitute?"
Yeah, of course.
I'm trying to remember that book. And I remember we were playing this game. I think it was called Catchphrase,
Yeah.
and we had to make other people guess the catcher of the rye without saying that. And I couldn't remember his name. I couldn't remember anything else. My description was he was talking to a prostitute, and I just, like the lady got mad and brought her pimp. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. And when people they didn't guess it obviously. And when they saw Catcher in the Rye, it's like, what is wrong? Like really, what is wrong with you? Like that's the only thing you remember in that book. And I was like, I don't know.
So you read it in
So
high school as well, right? Is
I
that the
did read that
game?
in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did read in high school. But like I said, I could not recall anything about that book.
I can't remember the
um,
characters' names now either,
yeah,
to be
I
honest.
could. Is it something Holden? Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something very
Yeah.
American in the 1920s. Something of that sort.
But it's interesting kind of talking about books is I didn't do as I started developing as a writer, I did not read a lot of books like at
Yeah.
all.
Interesting.
I didn't because my attention span, I have ADHD and it's very hard for me to focus. So I'll start reading like a page and I'm just like, what did I read?
Okay.
So it was very hard for me to pay attention. So like with reading a book, it was just out of the question. I look at a book and I'm like, this book is this thick, and you want me to read that? I'm like, no. So I never read much, but then I started reading a lot more, particularly self-published authors. I started reading a lot more. And the more you read and the more you start developing your own style of writing, the more you start seeing
Yeah.
things that you can improve on or things like that. So I really didn't read much as a kid or like even a teenager.
Mm. It's interesting that you say you have ADHD because in that novel that you've written, that gives it that character
Yeah,
that
it's
you
very
have to
ADHD.
find. You almost, yeah, I guess that's the best way to describe it. You have to find the character in the book. It's not like you're
Yeah,
following him, you're running after him and
yeah, you're
trying
chasing.
to, yeah, you're chasing him wherever he's going. Yeah.
You are, and like I said, it does slow down. It really does. And weird things still happen. Like, I'll kind of not a real big spoiler, but like because you'll notice like there's chapters. So I like to think of them like books, and then in each individual book, there's
Yeah.
chapters, kind of like how
Okay.
the Bible's, kind of how like the Bible is kind
Yeah.
of structured. So in the second like book or chapter, or what I consider it, it's called The Second Coming, and
Mm-hmm.
it's these kids are sitting in class, and who they perceive as Jesus walks
Yeah.
in as a substitute teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more grounded to where like it's not talking about dragons and stuff. Everything is normal, but these kids are like, I swear Jesus came into our classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And he's wearing like the whole get up and everything. And so it's just really weird. Like so I never thought about it like that, but it is like the mind of this kid with like ADHD. That's just, he's just going, like he is just all over the place. And like my best friend has ADHD, and I always say like he goes from point A to point M to point Z back to B to A to D, and it's kind of like that with the story. Like these kids are all over the place.
Mm.
Um, So yeah, I actually like the ADHD reference. I should put that in there as like in the beginning. Like this is like reading someone who has ADHD's mind. See how that goes.
Maybe. Um,
No,
I
I
don't
wouldn't do
know. I don't know if you would do it, but
it.
it's yeah. Would you mind talking about that though, ADHD, and how's that? Because I'm sure lots of people will be interested in
Well, for me, I will only
what it's
speak for
like.
myself. It's like for me, it's like I have 100 internet windows open at one time.
Yeah.
Um, or you just have so much stuff going on your computer. It's like slowing down a bit because it's like, hold on, because I need to process all of this stuff happening. So like at one time, my attention is like over there,
Mm-hmm.
over here, back there. Um, so I'm not. It might be just ADD, but like so my I'm not physically like hyperactive. It's my mind is just like all over the place and hyperactive. And it's very detrimental because growing up, like I
Yeah.
don't think people really knew what it was. So they just kind of consider kids, oh yeah, your kid is a problem child.
Oh,
He won't
really?
sit down, won't be quiet. Yeah, like I remember me and some of my other friends, we would get in trouble a lot because it's just like it's hard for us to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like they tried to label us as like, oh, you're problem children.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times over here, what I in America, which I seen was if the kid isn't sitting there following directions, then the teacher doesn't want to deal with them because there's a whole lot of issues with that. They don't have the time to,
Yeah.
they're trying to teach a class. They don't have time to try to make this kid sit still or make this kid pay attention and stuff, especially if they're acting out in some type of way, like getting up or talking. But they were put in, I forgot what the class is called, but they put the kids in a different class. And especially in like middle school and high school, these kids they were just there. They weren't doing anything. They were just sitting
Really?
there.
Well, that would make
Yeah.
them feel normal and accepted in the society.
No, yeah, it's kind of like you're telling them something is
Sarcastically.
wrong with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you're telling the kid there's something wrong with them, and it's just stigmatizing something. Is nothing wrong with being ADHD. There's nothing wrong with being ADD. There's nothing wrong with being anything like depressed, any of that. But
Mm,
a lot of the times there's a stigma towards it, and we'll tell a kid or anybody that matter that there's something wrong with them.
mm,
And that's not healthy. That's someone
absolutely.
who battled like depression and anxiety. Like that's not healthy at all for you to like tell that person there's an issue with you. You're different. Like why don't you act normal like this person?
Right,
And
yeah.
that started affecting. At least it started affecting me. I can't speak for anybody else, but it really did start affecting me.
Mm.
So,
How did you overcome that?
the ADHD, I just kind of it's just me.
No, 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 not
Like
that, actually. The fact that it's affecting you in that way.
um, I I like to think I have a thick skin. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like I just learned to let a lot of things roll off of my shoulders. It's like, you know what? I can't change someone else's mind.
You can't
I can't
control
make
people, yeah.
Yeah, I can't control it. So I really had to think when I was like maybe early 20s, like what do I have control over and what don't I have control over? And I can't dawn about the things I don't have control over. I can only focus on what I do. So with what people would say or people would do, I just go, you know what? It sucks, it hurts, but I can't let this get to me. Because I always tell people, if someone can control your emotions, they are now controlling you.
Yeah.
So I don't try to let people affect me like emotionally, like especially people I don't even care about. Like if it's just this
Yeah.
a teacher that doesn't know me and they just see me as a kid sitting in this seat and Lamar is dumb, he's stupid, whatever. Why do I care about what you think? Again, it's hard. So it still hurts. It really does.
Absolutely.
But I had to really take a moment, like a self reflection, and go, you know what? I can't let this a person affect me.
That's a very mature way to look at it. Interesting that you say that because I've had dyslexia all my life and I didn't know until I was at university that I was dyslexic. And I
Uh,
always thought I was a little bit less than intelligent, a little bit less smart than other people. And
oh
that's
yeah.
because of the conditioning that happened when I was in first grade, where we were reading
Oh,
and everybody had to read. separately, like a test, and whoever reads faster is the best. And I couldn't read out loud really fast. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not ashamed to say, like, I'm still a slow reader.
mm,
Like, my mind will associate certain words. Like, if I see a word like want and wait,
yeah.
like, because they're essentially the same word with one letter off. Like, if on the paper it says want, sometimes I'll read it and say wait, and I'm like, why did I say wait? Like, that's not what it
Mhm.
says. And my mind just associates that with that. Like, sometimes my mind just associate words that's close in spelling. And like, as a kid, I will always do that, and I would always be corrected. And it did. Like, I
Hmm.
hated being called upon
Yeah.
to read, because I was like, "Ugh, I'm gonna look stupid because my friend Jonathan, whoever, is gonna go up, read this flawlessly, and then I'm gonna come over here like saying the wrong words." So I hated it. I
Yeah.
despised it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It
It's
was the most scariest
funny.
thing ever.
Yeah, it's not funny, but it's funny that you say that. It's exactly it's very similar with dyslexia. You read one thing and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what it says. It's not that word, or I can't remember how to spell certain words, like really simple words, like clear. It's like I turn around to whoever's with me, like my partner's like, how do you spell clear? English is not his first language, so he's like Clear. I'm like, all right, like I just forget. It's weird.
Yeah, your mind just goes blank, and I do that to this day. Like, I'll read something, I was like, wait, oh, never mind, I do that word.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this. It's like this. Even if it's not noticeable to the eye, like mentally, I'm like, I can see the word, and I'm like, wait, what word is that? And I'm like, oh, never mind, I got it. And when I get to it, then it clicks. But there is a lot of times to where just seeing the wrong word,
Yeah,
not being able to process the word at that moment, it happens a lot.
that's true.
Yeah.
But the way I started to think about is that it's not really they're conditioning you to they are um, certain society, certain people conditioning you to think that it's a disability of some sort, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's just that your brain is wired completely differently, and
exactly.
yeah, and the schools are not set up to for people like that. Yeah, no.
I read once that the school systems, particularly out here, are set up like factories. So
Mm-hmm.
like the bell rings, you move here. The bell rings, you move there.
Yeah.
And it's socializing kids how to be workers.
Mm-hmm.
So bell rings, you come in, you sit down. You don't say anything, you don't do anything. You can't even use the restroom without being told that you can.
Yeah.
So it's really getting kids, again, socialize them how to be workers. So when they get into the workforce, they know how to take direction.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that because I challenged authority a lot as a child, like a lot. I would get in trouble
Any
so much.
stories?
I can't think of any in particular, but I was like that kid, like, why?
Yeah.
What give you the right to tell me what to do?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, well, Lamar, because I'm your mom, or Lamar, I'm your uncle, or
I
I'm your
know.
like teacher. And and it never wrapped around my mind. I was like, so,
Mm-hmm.
like,
What's your actual point?
what?
I've always done it as well. My mom loves that one. Because I'm your mother and I gave you birth. I'm like, well, that doesn't mean anything.
I'm like, it's okay, I appreciate it, thank you,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
was like, that
right.
doesn't mean you can
Thank you
be
for
mean
bringing me
to
to this world. Yeah. But it doesn't mean I
me.
have to.
So
Yeah,
I always,
yeah.
yeah.
You
So
always.
that's just me. I'm still kind of the same way. I'm that guy. Like, if I'm asleep and I have to be up at a certain time, like when I was a teenager, my mom tells me the morning before, we got to be up at 9 so we can get ready, leave for your grandmother's house or whoever. I can set my alarm for like 8:50. But if my mom comes and knock on my door, it's like, you need to be up. I would purposely, like, I'm gonna just lay here for like 10 minutes.
Just so that
I'm
I
just,
get up at the
I'm just
time that
lay
I
here,
want to. Yeah.
just naturally defiant. That's no,
Yeah.
but so just imagine that as a
Interesting.
kid. It was worse.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
I remember those
terrible.
days too. How old are
I'm
you
terrible.
now?
I'm 28.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Some people still say I'm a baby. I work in a college, and I do like recruitment for like high school students to get them into college.
okay.
And like, I'm talking to these 18-year-olds, and
Interesting.
and I'm like, hey, this is why college is important. This is why education is important, so on and so forth. And these kids look at me, it's like, you're old. I was like, excuse me.
I know. My sister is 9 years younger than me. So she's 17. She always tells me that. She's like, you're so old. I'm like, you're not that far behind.
I was like, not really.
Yeah, not really.
Yes. It's funny. Like, I was like, I still feel young, but I was like, when I'm talking to 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds, they consider me an old man. So I'm just like, all right.
By the time they get to that age, they'll realize that it really doesn't matter what age you are. By that point, it's all the same.
Right. I look at them, like, I got freedoms that you don't. I can stay when I want to. I can do whatever I want. You can't, sir, or
I can have
madam.
ice cream for dinner.
I might just do that right now. No. Yeah. So,
uh,
but that's, I am
yeah,
20.
it's a good age.
Yeah, it is.
I think so. I'm 26, so.
Yeah.
Mm. I was watching it on Netflix and
Oh,
talk about what, yeah, I know, jumping from topic to topic, but not really. Talk about the issue with schools and ADHD, and I can't remember what's it called, but it's a movie about Adderall.
okay.
Yeah, and
Never. I don't Netflix too much, but
do
I
you
think
have
I've
it?
heard. I do have it, but I'm not a big TV person.
No, well, me neither, not
Or like
anymore.
TV shows.
Not really
Like when
TV
people's like,
shows?
oh no, people tell me it's like you need to watch this, 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 and I'm like, I think like the last TV show I watched in full was Breaking Bad.
I still haven't watched that. That's because I
Oh
try to avoid TV shows.
yeah,
They
like
suck the life
I
out
don't
of
really
you.
watch much. They do.
Mm.
And so I don't watch TV much or even like movies. I'm not. I just spend half my time. I'm like it'll be like 12 o'clock at night. I'm going to sleep, and I'm like, what did I do all day? So I just like a lot of time I'm just like reading just random stuff. Like you'll catch me like I'll be on the internet like Googling just random stuff, like dumb stuff, like nothing like of even significance. Like once I was just on like researching like Sony or like Microsoft. And I was like,
Really?
yeah, and I was like, why am I reading the Wikipedia page for
How
Microsoft?
does that happen? Do you just have a question pop up in your head and you're like, oh, I wonder what that means, or
Yeah,
wonder what?
yeah, sometimes like I'm on social media a lot. That's terrible,
Yeah.
but I am on social media a lot. So sometimes people make a joke. It's like, oh, he looks like Bill Gates, and I'm like, oh, Bill Gates, Windows.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let me look up
it's
Bill Gates. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something that just sparks it. Or I just have these very, very random thoughts at times. Like thoughts that don't like. Sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and there's a song that I haven't heard in years. And I'm singing it. Like the other week I got out of bed and the first thought of my mind was like that song YMCA, and I'm like, why am I singing YMCA? No one mentioned YMCA. Nothing. Like I just woke up singing YMCA, and
That is so
so
random.
sometimes I have thoughts about stuff, and I just like, and then I'm like, oh, what happened to those people? And I'll just
Yeah.
Google that, and so, so I'm sorry, but I
Yeah.
got derailed here. I derailed you. So you were talking about the
No,
Netflix.
no, actually, no. Let's keep with what you're talking about. That's more interesting. Um,
Okay.
that's amazing. Yeah, I do derail as well. I'm so random, and my
Me
thoughts are the same. So we can have a conversation.
too. I'm random. I never stay on the same subject long.
Yeah.
So
Well, you mentioned your dreams, and dreams are
yes.
one thing that really fascinates me because I've always had very vivid dreams. Um, so you say you started writing them down, or you only wrote
Um,
one down?
only write down the ones that are like, oh, I need to remember that.
Yeah.
And so the ones I remember was Miscellaneous Eden. So
Yeah.
that's the name of the novel for anybody. I remember that dream. And then there's another dream that I never put on, like wrote it out, but I'll share with you. Well, I told my friend who was into dreams, and she's like, that is very deep. And I was like, is it? Okay. But I had a dream that I was Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started dreaming, I was like mid scene. So it was like I just got dropped in the scene. There was no explanation of how this happened. But it's morbid. See, I'm just a morbid guy, apparently. I was shot. Like I had like it was
Yeah.
shot like maybe like 3 or 4 times, and I'm bleeding out, but I'm stumbling down like the street, and I'm clearly injured. I'm clearly bleeding, but the entire time, like people are running up to me like, Batman, my mom's in danger, or help me out here, and like I don't say anything. I'm kind of like, I'm dying. Like I'm bleeding out. And
Hmm.
I'm like, why are you guys asking for help when I'm not in a position to help? And I remember that dream was so vivid, and I was like, I want to use that for something.
Mm.
I feel like that's a deep scene with the context around it. So I told my friend that, and again, she's all into dreams, and she was like, that's you feeling like, she was telling me I'm always helping people no matter what my
Hmm.
emotional state is.
Hmm.
So and I was like, oh, okay. And so when she was calling it deep, I was like, oh, okay. I just thought it was a dream about me being Batman.
Oh, I agree with her completely. I was
Cool.
going to say the same thing just now. Your
Yeah,
friend sounds interesting. Your friend sounds like she
yeah.
could be my friend. Uh, yeah, I agree with you. It's like bleeding is a very, you say it's morbid, but it's a very symbolic way to show that you're bleeding on the inside and you're helping people without helping yourself first. And they can't see that you need help. That's an
Yeah,
interesting
like
one.
even though it's out there, like they're not comprehending it, or they don't care, or
Mm.
maybe they really physically see it. But yeah, so I always thought that dream was interesting. And then there was one more dumbest dream I ever had as a kid. So showers, walk-in showers, the ones
Yeah,
with the door.
yeah,
I
yeah.
had a dream that those came alive and started killing people when I was a kid. So imagine a tub walking around like it's just
Yeah.
like teetering. It was crazy, like I had like 3 different dreams on 3 different like multiple like 3 different occasions of that,
Yeah.
all
That's
different,
awesome.
all different. So I guess I remember my nightmares more than anything else.
Well, that's one hell of a nightmare, but I
Yeah,
can't wait for you to start making cartoons out of this because I will watch them.
no, cartoon out of that one. That was
That was weird.
yeah, and then there actually, now I'm thinking of it, I was like, I do remember a lot of my nightmares as a kid. There's another one in my old house that I grew up in. My bedroom was like right next to the bathroom. So
Hmm.
if you walk out of my bedroom, the bathroom is immediately to your right. And I always had this dream to where like something called me out of my room, whether it was my favorite cousin saying, "Hey Lamar, come on, I'm downstairs,"
Yeah.
or if it was my mom calling me, or if I was just hungry, whatever. And when I opened the door and stepped out, something pulled me inside the bathroom. Never felt. So imagine how that feels when you have that dream and you wake up and you're like, I need to use the restroom. And it's like night. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And you're like, I'm not going out there. And I was small, like I was a young child having these dreams. But those are
Mm,
the ones I remember the most.
that's interesting.
People are
You
gonna be like, this
certainly
guy has
remember them.
weird dreams.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure some people will be fascinated. People who are listening to this podcast will probably be fascinated.
What's wrong with this guy?
Oh, no. There's
No,
so many things
I'm
wrong with all of us, trust me.
yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that. That's what I kind of talk about in my poetry. Is like I'm open with what's happening with me because like we all have issues, not in
Yeah.
a bad way. Like so, I just use loosely issues loosely. Like we all have something going on, so it's nothing to be ashamed of. Even if it's you're in love with this person who doesn't like you love you back, or you're seeking attention for someone who has broken your heart multiple times, or
Hmm.
stuff like that. I was like, it's nothing to be ashamed of. We're
Absolutely.
humans, we have emotions, and it's okay to hurt. It's okay not to be okay. And I
Hmm.
do feel like a lot of times society tells you have to be strong, especially men. Like it's very this like this definition of being masculine is you can't cry, you got to be tough. If you fall down and scrape your knees, get up and and so a lot of people are not taught to be in tune with their emotions and their feelings.
Hmm.
That's when you have these like just taking in like suppressing their emotions, and they're just like filling up like a balloon, and eventually I was like, you're gonna pop.
Hmm.
You got to let it out. It's not natural for
Absolutely.
you to just internalize all of that. And I did that for years. Like I really did. And I was like, this isn't healthy. So like I try to through my writings just like it's okay. Look,
Mm.
I'm not okay. and it's okay not to be okay.
I have to agree with you with the men, especially with the men part. I mean, I haven't been a man in like ever. But from what I see is from what I've seen, if being in relationships especially, is that maybe I was just with the wrong men all this time, but most of them couldn't feel feelings, and the only feelings that they could feel or they allowed themselves to feel is anger. So if they were sad, they would turn it into anger, frustration, and it's like that's not really healthy for you.
That's not, but
No.
I mean, I remember being young and I'm hurt. I can't remember what. I'm hurt. I'm crying. And people are telling me, hush that noise up. Be quiet.
Yeah,
Why are you crying? Man
exactly.
up. Like
Yeah,
things
men
like
up.
that. So then you grow up and you man up. Like
Mm.
you don't feel those emotions, or you feel them, but you don't let people know. And it's associated with weakness. That's why when you start thinking like this the sexist views of the world, to where it's like if you're timid, if you're emotional, you're acting like a girl, you're acting like a woman, you're feminine, and it's just it's terrible, because then you're telling people that you can't feel that, so they're not doing it. Oh,
Absolutely.
I'm not a girl, I'm not a sissy,
Yeah.
I'm a man. So then that's when you get these men just hyper aggressive, or you get like again they're just harboring all these emotions, and again not healthy.
No, and it,
Definitely not.
it does manifest. It's been proven by science so many times now. It does manifest into illness, literally. And
Yeah.
I think it's a very worldwide problem. But I am curious to know it's if it's different somehow. I don't know if you know in California.
Um, growing up, yes, I do like to think that we're in this very progressive age, and we're getting there to where we're trying to break these gender expectations, these gender norms, and to where there's a lot more into men in touch with their emotions. They're breaking this idea that a man can only be the manly man, brawly type guy that doesn't cry, stuff like that. And you see it kind of in movies as well. Like now you're seeing a lot more strong female characters,
Yeah.
because a lot of times it's of years past, like the the female characters only had one thing to do, and that was to play second fiddle to the main characters. They
Mm-hmm.
were love interests,
Mm.
they were sexual objects, or they were just there.
Mm.
Um,
Exactly.
and we are kind of seeing like the shift. Um, it's especially in California, because I'm in Southern California, and it is very, it's like LA, that area. So it is very progressive, and they're open to a lot of that. So I don't see it as much, but I saw it a lot, and it does still exist a lot, but I saw it a lot growing up, like a lot. Like, again, like when I was growing up, I couldn't cry.
Yeah.
Like if girls were out, I had a friend, she was the definition of a tomboy,
Mm-hmm.
as they say, if you ever heard of that term. And she was just a
Yes.
girl. She didn't wear skirts. She didn't wear dresses. She
Mm-hmm.
wore jeans and t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a tomboy. That's what everyone said. And they were like, "Oh yeah, she's
Mm.
lesbian." And that's they just like she's lesbian.
Mm.
And she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
She is married to she's married with kids. She was not bisexual. She's not lesbian. But because how she dressed, they just
Just assign a
that's
whole character to a
yeah, just assigned
person
that to her.
all of a
That's what it
sudden.
was.
Yeah.
When we were kids, she's like, "I'm not lesbian. I don't like girls." He was like, "Oh yes, you do. You just don't know it yet." Just because how she dressed,
Yeah.
just because she goes, I like playing baseball. I think jeans are more comfortable than skirts. I
Mm-hmm.
think whatever the case may be, they told her, "Nope, you're lesbian," and
Mm.
that's what it is.
Mm.
And so I did see a lot of that growing up, like a lot. Like I got called, I hate this word. I hate it. But I got called a faggot because I was crying once in school.
Wow.
So and I was like, okay, so I'm crying. So that, okay. And it really was a moment to where I couldn't even process it.
Yeah.
So like those are one of the vivid memories I remember, like as a child, because it's like you're assuming crying means weak.
Mm. It's
And
interesting that
so
you're all of a sudden you're gay, you're attracted to men because
yeah,
you're crying. And another interesting thing is that I apologize to all gay men for assuming this, but I feel like men and women are more connected to their feelings and are more emotionally intelligent um, than most people that I met because of the things that they had to go through in their early stages in life. I think maybe, but they know who
yeah,
they are.
yeah. No,
They know who
definitely
they
know who they
are, and
are.
they don't need people to tell them, like you said, with clothing and the way that you feel. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's the same with
So
women. The women are not allowed to be angry because if a woman is angry, she's crazy.
no, what? Yeah,
You're crazy. It's like, well,
you'll
no,
never
I'm just
find you'll
upset
never
with
find a
you.
man with that attitude, stuff like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
so it's crazy.
yeah. Yeah, it is
Um,
crazy. All
yeah.
these standards.
Oh yeah, I took a class in university, and it was a business class,
Hmm.
and they were talking about women managers or women in power, and they were saying how generally a woman in power in a workplace is perceived one of two ways, either a pushover or like a just a monster, a dragon,
Hmm.
kind of fire breathing, like, oh, she's just being so angry, she's rude, she's the B word, she's this, or again, she's a pushover, she's a woman, I don't have to listen to her. And I thought that was really interesting because, like, just working in the office, I see that. I really do see that. I see a lot of men go, oh, she's a you know what, oh, I hate her, she's just rude. And I'm like, she's not rude.
Hmm.
She breaks the mold of what this person expects a woman to act like. And this man, the guy in particular, is just sexist. So his
Yeah.
idea is, if you're not a woman, if you're a woman, you belong in the kitchen. And he carries that over to work. And it's ridiculous. It's
So I
it's
just
it's
remembered
crazy.
a terrible joke
Oh,
about women
don't
in the
say it.
kitchens.
Don't
Should I
say
say it? Does
it.
say it? Yeah. I think I got it from my Russian culture actually, so that makes a lot of sense.
so, so,
That
but
is
yes,
terrible. That's a terrible thing to say. But
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it's so that just reminded me of just what I just learned there, and like I said, it's so prevalent. Like, I see it a lot. I really
Yeah.
do see it a lot, and it's it's sad, really. It
Hmm.
really is sad to me. But then I also look at it like a perspective of a lot of this, a lot of these issues are still relatively new.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the issues in society, especially America, because I can only speak about the country I was born in. I love it, but we do have a lot of issues. And I feel like America's issue is we don't acknowledge the past. We rather go, whoa, that's over with.
Mm.
We don't worry about that anymore. Why are you still talking about that? And I was like, a lot of these issues, like racism, you go back a generation. I found out, like, well, I didn't just find out, but like my grandmother grew up in the middle. She was in a full-fledged adult
Yeah.
when civil rights. My grandmother could tell you very racist things that were happening in America, what was happening with her. My aunts and uncles, some of my aunts and uncles were alive when Martin Luther King was assassinated or whatnot. So it's still, a lot of this is still new, but we rather just brush over it and go, well, everyone is equal and everyone's free. And I'm a firm believer, you have to look at the past to
Hmm.
see and acknowledge, like, okay, we weren't perfect. It was a terrible time, but we're gonna take this and we're gonna move forward.
Exactly.
And so I feel like a lot of times we don't address and we don't acknowledge the past and the mistakes we made as a society. And I feel like that's where you'll still see these remnants of whatever's happening.
Mm.
And it's still going to take time
Absolutely.
because since it is so still new, like, you have individuals who are still working in the workplace or still going on who grew up in that time where sexism was cool. Because when you really think about it,
Yeah.
sexism was, if you go back and watch movies in the 90s or even early 2000s, like, they were still reinforcing a lot of those stereotypes.
Oh, in the 90s,
like
absolutely.
men. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's still really, really, really new.
All
So
of it
you
is
still
really
see it.
new. And like you were saying
Yeah.
with racism, you were saying that it wasn't that long ago. However, it almost feels like, and I haven't even been to America, but it almost feels like it's still going on. That's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's never really stopped. Sorry to say that. Yeah,
Me,
but
I still say it's going on.
mm,
I really do. Um, and kind of bring it back to writing. Like I'm working on a new collection of poetry, and this one is going to. It's me being more socially aware.
mm-hmm.
So if you read my first collection of poetry, it was mainly a charm bracelet, as was entitled. It was mainly me just kind of talking about a lot of his love and relationships,
Yeah.
with some stuff sprinkled in here, in there. But the next one I'm working on, it's dealing with things like some of the stories where the guy called me a faggot because I was crying, or people saying I'm black but I'm whitewashed because I talk a certain way, or racism going on with police shootings, or with so I talk about all of it, because it was something I shied away from. I was always like, I felt like it was going. I honestly feel like it was going on, but I was like, you know what? No one wants to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
Black, white, woman, man, everyone can relate to love. And that's how I kind of approached it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll just talk about that. But then I was like, no, I'm not like no, I'm not like Stephen King to where I have this giant platform, but I was like, I have some type of voice. And even if one person reads it and it connects with them, it resonates with them, I was like, I did a service. So I was like, I can't just be quiet. And also in GZ and outside of that, I was like, it's all this anger and frustration is building up inside of me. And I was like, I need to let this out. I need to.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're just suppressing it, and then it will just, like you said, it will pop. It
Yeah.
will explode.
Ex- exactly.
Yeah.
So when you say you feel like racism still exists, I do think it exists. And not to make
Absolutely.
it political, but I still think that there's a lot of things happening in our politics that is just blatant racism, like very just in your face. And
Really?
it
Well,
could
I don't watch the news. That's
I do. So Donald Trump is our president.
yes.
I'm not. I, I have friends that will go on and on about how he's the second coming of like Lucifer. I know some people who love him. All I will say is, for me, certain things he has said, I didn't agree with. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like how he said it.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that always sticks with me was, I don't know. I think he wasn't president yet, and he was talking about um, individuals coming over from Mexico into
Yeah.
America, which is a hot topic. Always have been for a while. But he was saying how he used the word Mexico sends people over, and they're rapists, they're murderers, they're drug dealers, there's this and that and that. And he used, and it might be the writer in me that catch certain words. And he goes, sure, some of them are good people. So that hurt. Now, I'm not Mexican. I am 100% black.
But as a
There's no,
person, that should
yeah,
that should make you
yeah.
feel something.
And that hurt me for the simple fact of, I was like, now you're saying the majority of people who come from Mexico are rapists or murderers or drug dealers or gangbangers, when that's not the truth. These are individuals that just want not a hard life. They want a great life like anyone else. We talk about this American dream, that you can come to America and realize your dreams. And then when someone comes over, discussion
Mm-hmm.
illegal or not, just stepping away from that whole realm, you're still saying a group of individuals, the majority of them are terrible people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's all I look at it from. I don't talk about the immigration policies or any of that. I just look at that one sentence, and I was like, I can't agree with this. I can't stand by someone who will openly say that, because that spreads hatred. That spreads fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's like you're creating a myth. It's like, if it's going back to the writing, if we were in charge, if we were tasked with creating this scary creature,
Mm-hmm.
because as an author, that's what you have to do. You can't visually see it, so you have to describe it. So if you write about this creature and you talk about how it has fangs and it's going to murder you as soon as you see it, then individuals who may not have a dealing with this, and kind of going back to the individual from Mexico. Now you're telling people, oh yeah, they're gonna come to your city and rape your daughter, murder your sons,
Yeah.
sell your dad drugs, and so things like that. Like I couldn't agree with, but so I do see there's still a lot of racism out there. I still see a lot of things happening, and I just see it with myself. And I can only speak about my interactions and my experiences. I've been called the N word for nothing, just because somebody was pissed off at me. So I've seen it. I experienced it. I've been at a store, and I tell people I was at a store with my friend who was white, um, blonde hair, blue eyes, and we were leaving a store, and the detectors went off. So I was like, oh, one of you two are stealing something. The officer came up to me. He made me empty out my pockets, take off my shoes, take off my jacket. He patted me down. He did all of this, and then he looks at me and goes, well, if you went through all this trouble to hide whatever you stole, then you just deserve it. And then I'm sitting there, and he never approached my friend. We walked out at the same time. He never approached my friend. He never said anything to her. And then as I'm walking home, she goes, yeah, I did take something.
Oh wow, what?
And so that stuck with me, because it could have not been racist. I'm always a man. I'm always the type of person that goes, maybe I don't know for sure, so maybe there's another reason, but I can't explain why two people who look different walks through a detector, it goes off, and your immediately goes to me. You see that I don't have anything on me. There's nothing in my pockets. It's like an electronics store, so it's not too many small things you can even take from there. So I was like, you see that I don't have anything, and it was never like, oh, I'm sorry, hey, maybe it's wrong. You just say, oh, well, you probably stole something, but I can't find it, so you put a fast one on me, go ahead and enjoy the rest of your day. And my friend was never approached. And again, some people may not consider that racism, but for me, that felt like racism.
Well,
From just this one individual.
It makes you think, and especially
Yeah.
the last comment that you said, whatever you took. What if the detectors were wrong? What if they were broken? You never really consider that? Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like, you think I stole something, and now you have to tell me why. If you tell me it's not racist, then you have to tell me why you assumed I really did take something. Like what about this situation, other than the detectors going off, makes you think I stole something? Because with technology fails.
Wow, that's so strange. That's so
Like
strange to me. Yeah.
so it was a more so confusion thing. Like I am not quick to play the race card at all. I'm not that person when someone does something, it's like, oh, because you're a racist, sir, or whatnot. I never played that. But I really sat down and I tried to have an open and honest conversation with myself. Like, what would make this man do that? And I couldn't think. That was the only thing I could think of. I was like, well, he never asked her for anything. So it was either because she was a woman and I was a male, or it was she was black. I was black and she was white. But I couldn't think of anything else. I really couldn't. Because he never addressed her. He never told her to do anything, none of that. So that's just what I was forced to believe. But
I've seen that not that situation, but I've seen that in my life only once. Not from movies and not from anywhere else. I was with my friend who was dark skinned. He's actually from Bangladesh, but he looks like he's from America, and he could be. He could be an African American. You can't tell where he's from. You really can't.
Okay.
But we went into a restaurant, just the two of us, and we were waiting to be seated down. And we're waiting, and she doesn't come up to us. And another couple comes in. She sits them down, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, maybe they had a booking. I don't know. Then another few people came in. And I'm like, excuse me, what's happening? And my friend tells me, like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. This happened to me before. It's okay. I'm like, that's not okay. That's not normal. That's crazy. And I come up to her and I say, can we have a seat, please? She's like, oh, did you guys want a seat? I'm like,
that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I think I want to eat. And I just walked out and left. I'm like, I'm not eating here. It's like, no, don't worry about it. It happens to me. And I couldn't believe that happened in New Zealand, out of all the places. It can be
It's
anywhere. Mm.
and like just talking to like social media obviously lets you connect with people all throughout the world, and I'm hearing some stories about it, like they've experienced racism here or in some country, and I'm like, oh man, I thought you guys had it, like you guys were fine over there. I never imagined it, because it's just like though the world is out there all at the tip of our fingers because our phones, like because you don't live there,
You
you
don't really
don't really
experience.
experience. Yeah, you don't see it like you. So it's still racism, sexism, all of that still exists. Some places could be worse than others, but it really does exist, and I feel like we do ourselves a disservice to turn a blind eye and say it doesn't exist, because it does. I remember two instances. One happened with my oldest sister and one happened with my mom. With my oldest sister, she was kindergarten. She was in kindergarten.
Mhm.
In the kindergarten, they were separated from all the other kids, and they had this big like playground, and they had this track, and you can ride tricycles
That was
like
with
during
your
lunch and
mom.
breaks. This is my sister. Sorry. So my sister's in kindergarten. They had like these little tricycles you can ride
Yeah,
on.
okay.
It was really weird, but she went up to some other kids and she was like, "Hey, can I play with you?" And in kindergartners, they said, "No, we don't play with niggers." Like
The little
she was
child.
told this. A child told her that a kid, yeah. So however old you are,
How
maybe like
would you learn that?
5,
Mm.
parents or guardians. So
Obviously, yeah.
she was told that. Another time is I remember I was a little bit older, and this one was with my mom. We were in a car. I think it was like around Christmas. So holidays are crazy around here, especially Christmas. And we were waiting for a parking space. My mom had her blinker on. A guy zooms in, cuts her off, takes her space.
Yeah.
As he passes her, he calls her a nigger as well. And I'm like, we didn't even do anything.
Just trying to park a car, just doing
we're
some
just trying.
groceries.
Yeah, I was like, we're just trying to park. So it's just I've seen it. And I'm not a person that I'm not that type of person that goes, yeah, if you're white, you're racist. I'm not a person that goes like, I honestly believe there's more like loving people in this world than people like that. But
Mm-hmm.
the issue with races, I feel like they're vocal.
Yeah.
So there's this vocal minority. So they seem like there's more than there actually are. But a part of me wants to believe that the world is a lot better than that. Yeah.
I think the world is a lot better. It's not the world, it's just some people. It's
Just
the
some people. Some people just broke
remnants.
it.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
people are just absolutely insane in
Yeah.
that
So
way.
like I
And
like yeah. So like I said, I try to talk. I'm trying to talk about it a lot more. Because on Twitter, my Twitter is where I do all my ranting. I just talk. I just let all my feelings out, just in non-poetic form. And I remember like a couple months ago, I just went off, and it's actually probably a poem that I should like find those tweets and write it down and just make it a part of the collection of poetry. And I kept saying the moment I found my voice.
yeah.
And when I used the term voice, it was like when I found that moment, the courage to stand up and fight for this cause. And so I was saying moments like I earned my voice when those kids told my sisters they don't play with, niggers. I found my voice when this happened. I found my voice. And it was just like those defining moments in my life that really led me to go, I have to advocate for people like me, people who look like me, because if I don't, like people are gonna think it's spreading awareness. It's like people are like, well, nothing's wrong. It's kind of like that thing, like, well, no one said anything, so there's nothing wrong.
Hmm. I think so. And I think it's important to do things that you feel like doing, especially with you having such a unique voice. And I think it's no coincidence that your voice is so different from everyone else. That way you grab attention and then you can speak about issues that really matter. I
So that's
encourage that. Yeah, that's amazing. So we have been talking for a little over an hour.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So can you tell us where to find you? So did you mention Twitter?
Okay. So
Yeah.
Twitter, let me see if I remember this. So on Twitter you can find me at Ghost Charades.
Mm-hmm.
Um And then on Instagram, it is the Ghost Charades. And then in
Oops, so
Facebook,
sorry.
you can find me. Oh, where?
Apologies.
On Facebook, you
My
no
alarm.
worries, you're fine. And Facebook, you can find me by just typing in Lamar, Lamar, Neal, Neal. And you should see my face.
Okay, sounds good. I'll link those all in the description so that people can find you.
Okay.
And I'll drop in a link for your books as well.
Okay.
So they are
Yeah.
on Kindle and Amazon and everywhere you can find
Yep.
books.
Yep. Both of them are on Amazon. A Miscellaneous Eden is a novel about a young boy who believes his mom is a goddess. And Charm Bracelet is just a collection of poetry. It's like my therapy session. So I'm talking about everything that led up to this point in my life. So yeah,
Sounds awesome.
check it out on Amazon. If you go to my Instagram, there will be a link there. On all my social media accounts, there'll be links for them as well.
Yeah, and if you go on Instagram, you can read some of your poetry.
Yes, I got over 1,000 poems on there, I think.
That's good. People,
Yeah.
people can do some reading.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And I'm sure we can do it again sometime soon.
Well, let me know.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, I feel like. Okay.
Right.
You have a great night.
Yeah, right.
And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
You too. Well, you have a great day, I guess.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.